What I noticed was that my treasure had become my relationship. And most people actually feel like that's a really good thing. As a matter of fact, they think that putting their treasure and their stock in their relationship is where it, quote, should be. And it can be really easy to believe that where we are putting our time, energy, and efforts is the right place, while where our spouse is putting it is the wrong place. But let's look a little closer at that. Hello, and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm Heidi. I'm a couples therapist and relationship coach specializing in mixed orientation marriages and mixed gender identity relationships. Whether you're just discovering this reality or you've been on this journey for a long time, this is the space where your marriage matters, your values matter, and your choices matter. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Complex Couples Podcast. Today, I'd like to share just a brief little anecdote with you. I came home from a date the other night with Daniel, and we had gone to dinner, and it's been a really busy time, and we've been in a bit of a slump lately. I'm sure some of you have felt those times when you're just in a relationship slump and you really, really want to get out of it, but you're feeling like it's just, not going well. And that's kind of how things have been. And but Daniel really tried hard to make sure we got a date that week, and we went out on our date. And afterwards, we came home, and I went inside, and I was sitting in the chair in the family room, and he didn't come in. And I waited, and I wondered where he was, and I knew he was on his phone in the car, and I thought, okay, well, he'll come in a little bit and sit by me. And he did come in a little bit, and he went straight to his office and went to do some emails for work and things like that. And the next day I was really like sitting in my chair in my study basically, and I was really thinking through like, okay, like why are things not going well between us right now? What is going on? And my mind really started to think like, he's just not that invested. He doesn't want to be with me. It's clear that he's just kind of going through the motions, but he's not that invested. And so as my mind is going, I started thinking, what would be a good way to deal with this? And one of the thoughts that I had was, well, maybe I could just ask him, what am I doing that maybe contributes to the fact that he doesn't want to be with me? And as I had that thought, I started kind of seeing pictures in my mind of like how I have been over the last couple of months, actually. And I started to see something that it was really present that surprised me a little bit. And that is, I started to see how focused I was on our relationship. And I think part of this was like starting Complex Couples Podcast and putting my marriage on display for other people. Like there's a sense of, ooh, I got to make sure my marriage is good. Like we got to keep this good. And there was this pressure on my marriage. And it wasn't the first time that I'd done this. I was raised to believe that the most important thing I could be is a good wife and a good mother. And so I put a lot of stock in that. And all I ever wanted to be was a wife and a mother. When I was young, that was the profession that I cared about. I wanted to be a wife. I wanted to be a mother. And of course, I wanted to do it better than the other people that I'd seen. And so in college, I wondered if I would ever get married. And I actually had a hard time enjoying college because I really was looking for a relationship. And I was so worried that wouldn't happen that to some degree I had a hard time enjoying college. Well, then when I did get married, when I was 24, that of course felt amazing. I was so happy that Daniel chose me, and I really thought, okay, now I've arrived and I'm going to be fine. But as time went on, it's funny, early on in our relationship, I pressured him to read the 5 love languages. And I'll never forget like trying to get him to read that with me and engage with me. And basically, he was not interested. We made it maybe through 2 chapters, and I couldn't figure out why he wasn't interested. But I, over time, developed this belief that it was because he wasn't as invested in the relationship as I was. And so as I was sitting in my study thinking through this, I started to see how I was back in a place that I thought I had left. And as I recognized that, I had a scripture come to my mind, and that scripture is, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." And what I noticed was that my treasure had become my relationship. And most people, I think, actually feel like that's a really good thing. As a matter of fact, they think that putting their treasure and their stock in their relationship is where it, quote, should be. Especially those who may have been raised like me with the family proclamation, where we're raised with certain beliefs of like who we should be as far as wife, mother, husband, father. And it can be really easy to believe that where we are putting our time, energy, and efforts is the right place, while where our spouse is putting it is the wrong place. But let's look a little closer at that. I was telling myself, look at me, here I am. I'm so, quote, invested in this relationship. But in all actuality, what I'm really invested in is looking like a good wife and a good mother. And in getting my value from being a beloved wife and mother. And so when I'm not seeing that reflected back to me by how my husband is behaving, by him wanting to be with me all the time, I feel a sense of something is going terribly wrong. And the reality is what is happening and this is how I make sense of it. I don't know what works for you, but often what I start to see is, I am shifting this not to just a relationship that's a good thing, but I'm making it the best thing. Essentially, I am making it what I worship. It is becoming my God. And it's natural to think that that's like, because we value family and relationships so much, it's a natural thing to do to shift it into that. For husbands and fathers, it's really natural actually for them to start making providing their identity and to make it their God, instead of recognizing that is not our identity. And my relationship, how it's going, how my husband feels about me, that's not my identity. And how much money he makes, how well he does as a provider, it's not his identity. They're important things, but they are not the most important thing. And when I start to put all of my energy and effort and time into this thing, that becomes my treasure. And where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And if that's where I put my heart and soul, my heart is likely to get broken, because a relationship with another human is not a sustainable source for what I want, which is to be unconditionally loved in spite of my weaknesses, in spite of my feelings, in spite of the fact that I'm being cranky and sad and blaming my husband for my problems. I want him to love me in spite of all of that. And that's a lot to ask of another human. We like to think that someone else can do that for us, that they can save us, so to speak, in that way. But my experience is that no human relationship can do that for us. They are imperfect. They love conditionally. They have a hard time seeing outside of themselves sometimes. And I know it's very disappointing that they cannot be for me what I want them to be. And my relationship cannot be for me the source that I want it to be. So it can be easy to tell myself I'm doing this right because I'm invested in this relationship and they're invested in work or whatever. But the reality is we are both invested in things that will let us down. So where should I invest instead? Well, for me, it's investing in a relationship with a being who doesn't let me down. And it is with a God in heaven who I know loves me unconditionally, who sees me, warts and all, and loves me in spite of my weakness, and who knows my heart, knows my desires and knows that I fail, that I'm not good at loving others unconditionally, and loves me anyway. If God is not a presence in your life, I would encourage you to find a spiritual center of some sort. I believe this is crucial to your relationship, to finding your worth outside of it. And it's crucial to you as a human to know your value, to know who you are outside of being a wife, a mother, a father, a provider, whatever your role. It can be so easy to see in other people how they're invested in the wrong things and how it's not working for them. It can be much harder to see ourselves because we see the things that we value as the most important. I hope you'll take the time to consider if that's really true. Thank you for joining me today. The fact that you're here shows that you are invested. I just hope you'll be invested in the most important things first and get things in order and not forget like I did, because it really, really, truly has an impact on how I show up when my expectations are off. I hope you have a great week. And if you have questions or comments, as usual, you can find me at www.complexcouplescoaching.com. I'll look forward to seeing you next week.